This is our new series, Deep Tracks. What is a deep track? Well, I know for myself, when I think about music, I think about the spiritual depths that music can contain. That it's this combination between these sounds that evoke emotion in us and these lyrics that really are like poetry, right? And they come together and they create these experiences, they create these emotions. And it does something really interesting. When we listen to music, we have a universal experience of what it means to be human, right? There are songs that speak to these common themes of what it means to be alive, right? And to experience different things in life. But then there are also these moments where we listen to a song and we experience the particulars of our own life. You know, maybe even today as we were singing some songs, you could see bits and pieces of your own journey in the song, even though it was written by someone else talking about their own life. So with art, we get to experience these universals and these particulars together. And so I thought it would be a really fun series to take a couple different songs, some that maybe are more familiar and some that are less, and explore those human spiritual dynamics behind each of those songs. Because we all have some kind of relationship to music, right? Like we all have an artist, or maybe it's a particular song that we're really connected with. I'm guessing, right? When I was in elementary school, it was like third grade, and the teacher went around, and we were in a circle, and she asked each of us what our favorite type of music was. And then we got to this one kid, and he just said, "I don't like any music," and kind of freaked me out, and I kind of stayed away from him the rest of third grade because I thought, how can you not like music? But, you know, that's okay. To each their own. But for me, when I think about bands or artists that I have a deep connection to, one of the first that comes up for me is U2. And if you're like a U2 hater, I probably should have made a disclaimer. It probably wasn't the week for you to come, just because, you know, it probably was like nails on a chalkboard for you. But if you like U2, or if you're familiar at all, you may know about their 1987 album, The Joshua Tree. It was their most famous album, arguably. It was what really kind of put them onto the world stage. And it's also an album that was really meaningful to my mom, who was in her early 20s when it came out. And a few years before I was born, she was in a horrific car accident. But because she loved this album so much, wouldn't you know it, this was the album that she was listening to when that accident happened. And so this was kind of a story and a mythology that I grew up with. That, you know, she was listening to the Joshua Tree before this accident that almost took her life. And if it had, I know I wouldn't be here today as well. So it was really a beautiful full circle moment for me, that when U2 came around to do their 30th anniversary tour of this album, that I was able to take her to go see that. We got to go see it together and kind of had that full circle moment. And I went like, I don't know if I blame you for the accident or if thank you, I don't know. But yay, I'm alive, you know, so something, right? But on this album, there is a song that we already covered today. It's I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. And that's going to be our deep track for today. And the reason that, you know, I wanted to show that video beforehand is because, you know, oddly enough, right, despite the lyrics, this is a gospel song, or as Bono puts it, a gospel song with a restless spirit. Now, it's interesting because for a lot of us who maybe grew up in church or organized religion, we hear that word gospel and we think of something a little different, right? See, the Latin root of this word essentially means good news. So gospel means good news. And yet the good news that a lot of us might have grown up with or were told was a good news with some kind of finality to it, right? With a resolution, a good news of certainty, right? And yet what's interesting is today we're talking about a gospel or a good news that is restless, right? That is unresolved, that is in motion, that is changing, that is evolving. And I thought this is why it's a perfect song for us here at Aldea, because we are a community that is growing, that is changing, that is evolving, that doesn't value certainty over being willing to wonder and question and keep searching and continue the journey. And so I felt like it was something that I really thought would be perfect for who we are. And as we go through it, I do want to make something clear. I'm sharing my interpretation, how this song hits me. And the beauty of art is that it evokes something from us, right? So there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to engage with music or art. There's not a right or wrong way to interpret something. So I encourage you, as we go through this message, allow these words to land on you however they want to land on you. And we're just going to let art do its thing and really evoke something from the observer just as much as it had a meaning coming from whoever made it. So we start with that title, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. And I'd be curious, and I'd ask you, what is it that you're looking for? When you hear those words, what do you think you're looking for? Maybe you think about a particular time in your life where you had a very fixed and set destination or goal. So maybe that's what comes to mind for you, what you were looking for at this really particular time in your life. Sometimes we are given this sense by culture that if we could just get to a particular place, if we could just reach a certain destination, if we could just have a particular accolade or a particular amount of money, if I could just get that job, if I could just get that vacation house, if I could just get that partner, I would be complete. This is a myth that we often believe, and also finds us in smaller scale ways. Right? I think this is why we love shopping. We love internet shopping, because it's like, if I could just complete the set, then I would be happy. I do this a lot with my wardrobe. Like, I have more than enough clothes. But then there's always that thing that comes to my mind of like, I need a beige button thing. And it's like, well, that's too beige. It's like, I know the exact color that I want. And like, and it's gotten more difficult with, online shopping. And I found this thing called Poshmark, which is like an online, thrifting website. And then so it's like, it's just infinite. So I need help. But the point I'm making is that we have these things, large or small, that we look to and we feel like this will complete us. This will make us whole. But really, beyond those illusions, what we're actually really searching for, what we're really looking for, is that sense of peace, that sense of wholeness, that sense of aliveness. And we mistake things as the destination, right? And so what's beautiful is that when we turn inward, when we turn towards maybe a more spiritual understanding, we do get back on track to what we're actually looking for, but it's often a last resort, right? We try everything else, we go down every other available path, and then we realize, oh, it didn't work, still haven't found what I'm looking for, and so we turn inward. And so that's a journey that I want to explore today, is kind of moving from the external to the internal. But I want to start with that verse. I have climbed highest mountains. I've run through the fields only to be with you, only to be with you. I've run, I've crawled, I've scaled these city walls, only to be with you. There's a sense of desperation and intensity, right? A pursuit. Can you remember a time in your life where you chased something like this, where you were willing to go through whatever obstacles, climb whatever mountains you needed to climb in order to get where you were going? I know for me, there was, a period of my life where I was really dead set on becoming a musician. And so I basically took any gig that I was offered, and I played anywhere you could possibly imagine, like every restaurant, coffee shop, back alleys, backyards. Like, I played at plenty of places where I was like, why am I here? I played in front of, on like street corners, and I was kicked off street corners and all that kind of stuff. So I look back at that time of my life and I see that like I was trying to scale the walls in order to achieve that dream and get to where I wanted to go. And it makes me think, for whatever that might look like for you, it makes me think about these different seasons and these different passages that we walk through in life. It's something that people like Richard Rohr talk about as the first and second halves of life. And basically the idea is that in our first half of life, and remember, it doesn't necessarily correspond to age. It's about a journey that we're going on internally. And the first half is this time in life where we're looking towards our goals, we're achieving, we're building our identity, we're building our ego, we're becoming something in the world, right? But then we have this transition, we reach this point where we begin the second half of life. And the second half is really when we turn inward, when it's not so much about all the trophies I can add to my shelf, but it's actually, what can I let go of right? What identities can I let go of? And how can I experience myself apart from all these ideas of who I am? So essentially, the first half is climbing the walls. The second half is coming back down and finding peace in a sense of being and a wholeness that's there, present inside of us, not necessarily defined by what's going on in our external life. And really, this conversation was one that was initiated by Carl Jung. And he says this: one cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be of little importance in the evening, and what in the morning was true will at the evening become a lie. In other words, friends, there are things that might have mattered so greatly to you in that first half, right? When you're pursuing and trying to become something, and those things maybe take far more of a back seat when you reach this other stage, right? How many of you can think of things that don't matter the way that they used to, right? Because you've begun this different leg of your journey. And I think that we all are given the opportunity to make this transition. And I think one of the reasons why we make that transition is because we find sooner or later that we still haven't found what we're looking for. See, friends, our dreams, our goals, our ambitions, they are beautiful things. They lead us in a particular direction. But the problem is when we become convinced, I will be happy when I achieve this. I will be happy when I get this title, or when I become this person, or when I get this thing. We're convinced that our happiness lies on the other side of that pot of gold. It ultimately leads to a feeling of emptiness. Now, if I had heard these words when I was in the middle of my dream phase and my that hardcore pursuing, I would have looked at someone like me and been like, you're quite a buzzkill. You're being quite a downer, okay? You've just given up, right? But for me now, I could see that I found a deep hope on the other side of this. So stick with me a little bit and we'll find that hope together. But I want to move into that second verse. I've kissed honey lips, felt the healing in her fingertips. It burned like fire, this burning desire. Now, our pursuits, they expand beyond just our dreams, beyond just our goals, and they move into perhaps involving another person in your journey, perhaps a romantic partner. And certainly these partnerships, these relationships allow for a depth of experience. The problem becomes when we make them the goal rather than someone to journey with. And we're a little disadvantaged because pretty much all media, the entire entertainment industry, is geared towards telling you that when you find that romantic partner, you will be complete. You will be happy, right? And certainly I do believe that our partnerships, our relationships, they are doorways and they are pathways to a deeper experience of life. But the problem is when you place all of your hope on meaning and fulfillment from another human being who is, again, to remind you, simply only human, it can lead us down a difficult path where, of course, we're going to be saying, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. These are people, these are relationships to journey with us. That's why they're called partners, right? So we get to that second verse. I have spoke with the tongue of angels. I have held the hand of a devil. It was warm in the night. I was cold as a stone. What do you think of when you think of speaking with the tongue of angels? See, I think for a lot of us, we may have grown up in religious circumstances where the thing that was most prized is, do you appear holy, right? Do you appear to be that vision of morality? And certainly many of us probably lived that. And many of us probably felt secure in that idea of ourselves. I know for me, as someone who grew up in church and then made a career out of being in church and essentially spent a lot of my life as like a professional religious person, people looked at me and they thought like, oh, he speaks with the tongue of angels. And you can get lost in this idea of oneself. And you lose sight of the fact that everyone, pastor or anyone, just another human being, puts their pants on one leg at a time, except for me, I wore skinny jeans for most of my adult life, so it probably took a longer to get that one pant leg on. But here's the reality. It's a trap door, right? We're not going to find what we're looking for if it's all about just being perfect, right? In fact, Paul says you can speak with the tongue of angels, but you have not love. It's meaningless, right? So it's about the internal, not the external appearance of being perfect or being moral. Or we go the other direction, right? I've held the hand of a devil. Maybe when we think about holding the hand of a devil, we think about turning towards things that we think are going to fulfill us, like vices, right? Like it's no coincidence to me that U2 filmed the music video for this song in Vegas, a place where we associate with, you can have everything you want, right? Shiny lights, Sin City, like all your needs and desires can be fulfilled. And it's that promise of warmth, right? But we all know that there is an emptiness behind it. It's an attempt to fill a hole. It's an attempt to ease a sense of discomfort. But ultimately, ultimately, you will. I mean, she's like, I found what I was looking for. Ultimately, you will, at the end, and anyone who's followed that path will know. It's like, it will ultimately leave us looking for more. And you will say, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, right? Whether it's our dreams, whether it's romantic partnerships, whether it's a sense of who we are, maybe being the perfect person, being moral, or maybe it's our vices, the things we turn to that we think will fulfill us. All of these are attempts to try to give us this experience out of life that we're wanting. And yet, for those of us who have followed those roads, we can all say that we'll still be left singing this chorus, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. There has to be something more. There has to be something behind all of those things. And maybe that leads us to a spiritual pursuit, a spiritual understanding of things. So we move into the third verse. I believe in the kingdom come, then all the colors will bleed into one. But yes, I'm still running. This image of the kingdom come, this image of colors bleeding into one, it's a beautiful picture of a unity and a oneness that is possible when we lay down our sense of separation, when we lay down these dividing lines that we have created, right? That we are all ultimately one. A beautiful picture of what we might even get to see glimpses of in our own lives, right? So it's a beautiful picture, but it's also something very personal, particularly for the members of U2, because U2 grew up in the 1970s in Ireland during a period of intense conflict known as the Troubles, right? A 30-year religious civil war among lines of Protestant and Catholics that claimed 3,500 lives. And for people who grew up in this world, they grew up, with bombs and armed conflict and all kinds of fear. Bono says this about growing up in the Troubles. Could you imagine Ireland in the 1970s? It's a civil war. The country's dividing along sectarian lines. I was very suspicious and still am a little suspicious of religious people. I mean, religion is often a club that people use to beat someone else over the head with. I learned that at a very early age in Ireland. So while we might hold this vision of hope, of a future, right? He says, I believe that all colors will bleed into one, but I'm still running. And when I hear that, I think about how no matter what we can envision, there are still things we experience in life that impact us forever. There are still things that we continue to heal from. And I love the honesty in this lyric. Or we move into the next verse. You broke the bonds and you loosed the chains, carried the cross of my shame, oh my shame. You know I believe it. So this is a pretty direct reference to Jesus. And of course, we acknowledge that, from their heritage, they had the authors of this song had a Christian heritage, grew up within a Christian spirituality. And, I think Bono is someone who, in culture has been someone who has been a person of faith without ever seeming to, force it down anyone's throat, right? Pushing it on us to believe a certain thing, except for that one time that they uploaded their album on everyone's iPhone, right? That was the only time there was any kind of version of that. But we think about the context, right, of these last verses, right? These turning towards this hope, and we think about the religious civil war that they grew up in, something that we can probably have an understanding of, have it relate to, both abroad in our world today and in our own country. And we can also look at the era in which Jesus' story takes place, right? Again, one of conflict among religious lines. And we recognize that Jesus represented what we might call third-way consciousness, when there is a black and white or us or them mentality, or even Catholic and Protestant. Jesus comes in and he transcends, and teachers like him, they embody what we might consider a non-dual or a third-way consciousness, where they invite us to see not us or them, but something greater entirely. Even still, even with that hope, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And this is how the song ends, without a full resolution, still allowing ourselves to rest in that restlessness, right? That unknowing. And you might think, well, what's possibly left, right? We've gone through all of these different aspects of life, and you still haven't found what you're looking for. We end on sort of a spiritual understanding of things, and you still haven't found what you're looking for. Here's where I want to land today. Friends, we talk about life being a journey, and we talk here in this place about the spiritual journey that we're all on. And yet what's interesting to me is that if you find everything that you're looking for, your journey stops being a journey, right? I want to pose a question to you today. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's just something I think that is really worth thinking about. And it's this. What if the reason that you still haven't found what you're looking for is because what you're looking for can't be found in the ways that we think, right? We're thinking of something that will give us the full scope of meaning. But what if life remains a journey? Joseph Campbell says this. People say that what we're all seeking is a meaning for life. I don't think that that's what we're really seeking. I think that what we're seeking is an experience of being alive. And I think what he's saying is that rather than finding something that's going to provide to us a singular meaning for life, that we're going to reach this point where everything that we've gone through is going to make perfect sense and it's going to add meaning to everything. What if instead, what we're truly wanting, though we don't often realize it, is the experience that we have all along the way, the experience that even includes doubt, that includes the wondering, that includes the wandering. And it's this type of thinking that orients us not towards the outcome, but towards celebrating the process. I want to read you something from my childhood. And I want to see how much time we have, so see how fast I'll go. Okay, all right, we're good. So I'm going to read you this book that comes from my childhood. It's called The Missing Piece. It was written in 1976 by Shel Silverstein. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he wrote The Giving Tree. He wrote There's a Light in the Attic, Where the Sidewalk Ends. Yeah. And I have always been impacted by his work, but this is my absolute favorite. This is my childhood copy. And I want to read you this story, and I just want to invite you to see yourself in it. Obviously, it's too small to see up here, so I also have the pages on the screen. So if you will humor me, I want to read this book to you and see if you can find the connections between your life and what we're already talking about. All right, you ready? Here we go. it was missing a piece, and it was not happy. So it set off in search of its missing piece. And as it rolled, it sang this song. Oh, I'm looking for my missing piece. I'm looking for my missing piece. Heidi-ho, here I go, looking for my missing piece. Sometimes it baked in the sun, but then the cool rain would come down. And sometimes it was frozen by the snow, but then the sun would come and warm it again. And because it was missing a piece, it could not roll very fast, so it would stop to talk to a worm or smell a flower. And sometimes it would pass a beetle, and sometimes the beetle would pass it. And this was the best time of all. And on it went over oceans. Oh, I'm looking for my missing piece, over land and over seas. So grease my knees and fleece my bees. I'm looking for my missing piece. Through swamps and jungles, up mountains, down mountains. Until one day, lo and behold, I found my missing piece, it sang. I found my missing piece. So grease my knees and fleece my bees. I found my... Wait a minute, said the piece. Before you go greasing your knees and fleecing your bees, I'm not your missing piece. I'm nobody's piece, and I am my own piece. And even if I was somebody's missing piece, I don't think it'd be yours. Ouch. Oh, it said sadly, I'm sorry to have bothered you. And on it rolled. It found another piece, but this one was too small. And this one was too big. And this one was a little too sharp. And this one was too square. One time it seemed to have found the perfect piece, but it didn't hold tightly enough and lost it. Another time it held too tightly and it broke. Next page is just the aftermath. Oh, sorry. So on and on it rolled, having adventures, falling into holes, and bumping into stone walls. And then one day it came upon another piece that seemed to be just right. Hi, it said. Hi, said the piece. Are you anyone else's missing piece? Not that I know of. Well, maybe you want to be your own piece? Well, I can be someone's and still be my own. Well, maybe you don't want to be mine. Maybe I do. Maybe we won't fit. Well, it fit. It fit perfectly at last. And away it rolled. And because it was now complete, it rolled faster and faster, faster than it ever had rolled before. So fast that it could not stop to talk to a worm or smell a flower. Too fast for a butterfly to land. But it could sing its happy song. At last it could sing, I found my missing piece. And it began to sing, from my missing geese, from my missing breeze, so crease my mies, blease my drees, from... Oh my, now that it was complete, it could not sing at all. Aha, it thought. So that's how it is. So it stopped rolling, and it set the piece down gently, and slowly rolled away. And as it rolled, it softly sang, oh, I'm looking for my missing piece. I'm looking for my missing piece. Heidi-ho, here I go, looking for my missing piece. What would it mean if we could let go of the idea that one day we will get there, one day we will have arrived, one day we will have found it? And instead, we find that the joy of life is in the pursuit. It's in the discovery. It's in the movement, right? How many of us play board games just so we can get to the end, right? Except Monopoly. I know we're just like, please be done, right? But we want to know how we get there, right? How many of us watch movies and you get to the movie theater and you're like, okay, wake me up in 2 hours and just tell me what happened? No, you want to enjoy the process. It's why we reread our favorite books, right? We know the end and we want to see how we got there. Or when it comes to music, it's what Alan Watts says. No one imagines that a symphony is supposed to improve as it goes along, or that the whole object of playing is to reach the finale. The point of music is discovered in every moment of playing and listening to it. So you still haven't found what you're looking for. Maybe that's a gift, because life, it's a dance, it's a song. And when we get so focused on reaching that conclusion we have set out in our minds, we miss all of the little moments, the moments that can hold so much meaning. And again, I'm reminded of this beautiful section when he says, this was the best time of all, right? Before he had found what he thought he was looking for, right? It was in the middle. It was in the midst of the journey. And it was a reminder that I know I needed, particularly in my early 20s, when I was so caught up in the destination. So I got this tattoo a long time ago, and it's this scene. And I can't tell you how many times people have said, hey, is that Pac-Man? But the good thing is I have to then, I can't say yes, right? Unless I'm really tired, I just say yes. But if I have the energy, I'll usually will say, no, it's actually this book. And I get to tell them a little bit about this book. And I get to share this message that has really been one that's impacted my life a lot, which is that really the joy of life is found in the present moment, in the midst of the process, right? Which also means that the doubt we experience, the unknowing that we experience, maybe even at times the discontent of wishing we had more clarity. Where are things going? When are things going to come together the way I want them to? All of those feelings are all part of it. They all belong. So when you're waiting or when you're wandering or you're wondering, it all belongs. And perhaps the best moments of life can happen in the midst of all that. How many of you can look back at some of the most amazing moments of life, and you can see that while the moment was amazing, you were probably in a time in your life where otherwise you didn't have things figured out, right? You were still in the midst of unknowing. Aren't we always? And friends, this also means that if you're discouraged, keep going. If you're feeling lost, if you're feeling unsure, keep going. You still haven't found what you're looking for, right? Maybe people in your life are looking at you going like, hey, shouldn't you have found what you're looking for by now, right? Shouldn't you stop changing? Right? Why are you still trying new things? Why are you still evolving as a person, right? But ultimately, this is a personal journey. It's a journey of finding yourself in the middle, not needing to have all the answers, not needing full closure, but embracing the joy that's right here in front of us. So, Aldea, when you look at your life and you can see that you still haven't found what you're looking for, will you recognize that as gospel? You recognize that as good news? May we value discovery over resolution. May we value the journey over the destination. And may we recognize that while we all have those missing pieces, that all along the way we get to have this experience of being alive.